There are astronauts, and there are euphonauts.
Warning, the following material may not be suitable for all audiences. Please listen responsibly.
Welcome, everyone, to Euphanaut Radio 9 to 10 every Saturday night, broadcasting live at our top secret location here in Portland. I am your host, Jesse Randolph, and as always, thank you for tuning in tonight to a program that takes you on a truth journey outside the Matrix every single week. Euphanaut Radio, what do we do here? We report the latest happenings within ufology, paranormal, new science communities, examining these subjects with a high level of positive scrutiny together. So, with that being said, put the cell phone on vibrate. All my friends out there across the globe, Portland Metro, my friends enjoying this amazing, long-lasting summer. Open your minds while we present the taboo that most are afraid to discuss openly. So much going on this week, I wouldn't know where to start. If you miss our two shows during the week, we call them Euphanaut Light. They're all available for free at your leisure. Download them on iTunes. Look for Euphanaut. Go to euphonautradio.com. Support us. Watch our videos. We have a brand new YouTube channel that we're very excited about. It's a partnership with UFO TV. And I think we were 35, the most popular YouTube sites in the UK. We were ranked number 35 UFO TV, and that is exciting. We've got a brand new, our 9/11 special is up there, 45 minutes for you. The Leslie Kane interview is up there for you. Download them, go watch them, and enjoy them. I'm telling you, this is an amazing year for people who have been in the closet about their feelings regarding the extraterrestrial presence on this planet, the UFO phenomenon in general. Never before have we seen the mainstream starting to embrace this subject with clarity, with some sort of meeting of the minds without just dismissing it, looking at some of the evidence. We still have a ways to go, let me tell you. But tonight's show, I think, is going to open up a lot of eyes. A lot of eyes. Here's a mainstream fellow coming on this program tonight. Another top-tier type messenger. And you know I like to bring you the highest quality messengers possible. It's the only way to reach the masses, especially in the Pacific Northwest here, with such incredible, affluent thinkers. I have to bring you the quality messengers, people above average to genius level intelligence, for you to digest and even possibly consider some radical concepts. So tonight's show, for those of you who have not heard, the U.S. government this week apologized for horrible experiments performed in Guatemala by American doctors who infected hundreds of prisoners, soldiers, and mental patients with syphilis in the 1940s. The experiments were intended to test the use of penicillin. Absolutely disgusting. We've heard stories like this before. We've heard about past atrocities that our own government has performed on unknowing participants. Tuskegee ring a bell? And we are always shocked. We're shocked, right? Don't we have a moral standard that is higher than the rest of the world? Is it possible that our own government would deceive or possibly use its own citizens as lab rats? Interesting, isn't it? Makes you wonder. Well, when if the U.S. government had in their possession a being from another planet? Think about it for a second. An extraterrestrial being that was basically fair game for testing, for prodding, for probing, and was not held to any law or standard of treatment. Could this have happened? Perhaps it's still happening right now today. Project Aquarius. Does it ring a bell? If it doesn't, don't worry about it. You're going to hear plenty about it tonight. According to my guest, Project Aquarius was the U.S. government's alleged secret project to research extraterrestrial biological entities, sometimes referred to as EBs, and their presence on Earth. Much of the information on Aquarius in recent years has become known from the highly, and I will stress the word highly, controversial whistleblower, Dr. Dan Burisch. Burisch has claimed interactions with an extraterrestrial named J-ROD, sometimes referred to as the J-Rod, who was housed in a secret underground base at Area 51, referred to as S4. So it was a top-secret location within Area 51. Our guest tonight has been investigating Dr. Dan Burisch and his claims regarding Project Aquarius, as well as Burisch's explanations to the following questions. Who are the extraterrestrials? Where did they come from? Why are they here? And Burisch's detailed accounts as to how J-Rod and the entities' crafts eventually ended up at S4. We are excited to throw some interesting concepts your way tonight by being joined tonight by Mr. Michael Schratt. Project Aquarius, possible alien beings being held against their will by the U.S. government, and of course, your phone calls tonight. When we come back, welcome to UFOnaut Radio on KPAM 860. We'll be right back.
9 to 10 every Saturday night. UFOnaut Radio with Jesse Randolph on KPAM 860.
Possible alien beings being held against their will by the U.S. government. Tested, prodded, probed. Doesn't sound all that far-fetched to me if you start reading the headlines of last week. You start reading about what's been done to our own citizens throughout history. Why not? Michael Schratt, our guest tonight, is a military aerospace historian. He's lectured across the country on the subject of mystery aircraft and classified propulsion systems buried deep within the military-industrial complex, which is what Eisenhower warned us against. Beware. Michael has developed a number of contacts who have had first-hand experience dealing with classified black programs. In fact, we're going to get into what is a black program. A lot of people think they know, including former U.S. Air Force pilots, retired naval personnel, and aerospace engineers who have maintained a top-secret Q Majestic clearance, or MAGIC clearance. A private pilot in his own right and military aerospace historian, he currently works as an aerospace draftsman / researcher near Tempe, Arizona. Michael, welcome to the program.
I'm here. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome to the program. We lost you there for a second, but you're here. We're so glad to have you with us. We have a lot to cover. I want to get right into it. Now,
absolutely.
I think the first way to try to dissect this, especially Project Aquarius, is that we need to educate the masses here a little bit on what a black program really consists of. So my first question is, what makes a normal military program a black program, Michael?
When we talk about black programs, we're basically talking about three different levels. We first have a black program. That's any program that has less than 5% congressional oversight. We have what's called a deep black program. Then we have what's called a USAP, or unacknowledged special access program.
Okay, fair enough. And how much of our budget, whether it's defense or whatnot, do you think is funneled into these black programs per year?
Very interesting. We had about $35 billion fiscal year 1988 procurement funding into the black budget. Now, I've heard unconfirmed reports that number for 2010, when we're talking wave programs, very deep unacknowledged special access programs, could be over $400 billion per year now.
Okay, that's amazing. So who are the people who work on the programs, and who are they held accountable to?
Very good. The U.S. Department of Naval Intelligence is running a significant majority of these programs. And this subject matter what we're going to be discussing tonight has essentially been removed from the military intelligence agencies and now has gone on to the defense contractors. That has definitely been the case for quite some time now.
So in essence, if I'm reading you right, the government is able to somehow sometimes hide some of its special stuff, some of their experiments and whatnot through the private corporation/contractors, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. The things that are going on at Lockheed Skunk Works in Palmdale, California, the things that Northrop is working on, the things that the Boeing Phantom Works is working on. They have thousands of employees there. This has been going on for decades. We don't know what they're building. And if you factor in what Ben Rich said before he died in 1995, back in 1993, he said basically that we have things that could make George Lucas drool, and we have things in the Nevada deserts that are 50 years beyond what you could possibly even dream of. If you've seen it on Star Wars, Star Trek, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort.
The head of Lockheed Skunk Works. I wanted you to tell this gentleman's name
Yes,
and what his title
Ben
is.
Rich, he took over the Skunk Works back in 1975 from Kelly Johnson at Burbank, California.
And he is now deceased?
He is now deceased. He died in 95.
Okay, and then
He made a whole series of just bombshell statements before he passed away, and kind of leading us to read between the lines of what's actually going on within the black world.
Right. I mean, these are very powerful, mysterious people, and they're doing things in places, and we're going to get into Area 51 here, because here's a location that has really dropped off the radar of people's interest level. And it's amazing how the government's done a really good job of just letting that sort of exist, and then people lose interest in it. Basically, I think because they've done an amazing job, and this is what I want to ask you about. How can it be in 2010, okay, 2010 here, and we could count on two hands the amount of people who have come out of Area 51 and have talked about their experiences and what they've worked on? How can that be, Michael?
You can probably count on one hand the amount of people who have come forward. It's been very low. It's been a minimalist approach. They have come forward, but I would agree it's a low number.
Well, can you explain to me why you think that is? I mean, you have a lot of private contacts who work with these major clearance levels. What do they have over them?
The level of security is very oppressive, and I do want to get into that. If you go to the Janet Terminal near McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas, you'll see this huge parking lot out there, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's fenced in. You cannot get access to it, but you can come just outside of it. They allow you to get within like 16 feet of it. There's a sign stating that you can't get too close to this fence.
No, I understand
the
that.
The question is, if there's this non-existent base, what are all these cars doing here for?
Well, but we know that. Okay, so 2010, right. We already know that. We know that they're employing plenty of people. What I'm talking about is they have people who sweep the floors, obviously, who wash the dishes. You're telling me that someone from Inside Edition or one of these other magazine-type inquiring rags hasn't approached one of these characters and said, hey, I'll pay you $25,000, which is almost your salary for the year, if you give us some juice or something or try to pull something out of there.
Yes, I would love to hear something like that, but again, this is a no-nonsense facility, and hopefully what we'll be speaking about tonight is even more highly classified facility than Area 51.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Now at least we can draw upon what a black program is, and if you're following this new NBC series, The Event, you can understand, I think, Michael, you'll probably agree with me, that past presidents and current presidents don't even know or have access to what is going on in these black programs.
Absolutely. And Jesse, I want to throw this out there. Not sure if your listening audience is aware of this, but do you personally know what that reverse E stands for in the event logo?
No, sir.
Okay. It turns out that is a mathematical constant, and what that mathematical constant means is this is true.
There are astronauts, and there are euphonauts.
Warning. The following material may not be suitable for all audiences. Please listen responsibly.
Facilities in Area 51.
Okay, let's leave it at that. Now at least we can draw upon what a black program is. And if you're following this new NBC series, the event, you can understand, I think, Michael, you'll probably agree with me, that past presidents and current presidents don't even know or have access to what is going on in these black programs.
Absolutely. And Jesse, I want to throw this out there. Not sure if your listening audience is aware of this, but do you personally know what that reverse E stands for in the event logo?
No, sir.
Okay. It turns out that that is a mathematical constant, and what that mathematical constant means is this is true, this is established.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, well, let's lay the groundwork here. There's the project we're going to talk about tonight is called Aquarius, right? Now, the first question I want to ask about is how did you hear about the project before we even get into Dan Burisch? How did you hear about Project Aquarius?
I heard about Project Aquarius years ago, perhaps like other researchers as well. I didn't have a full understanding of what that terminology meant. And then about 6 months ago when I met with Dr. Dan Burisch and Marcia McDowell, we had gone over the material. We made an agreement to do this subject justice because visual aids were never put together with this story. And so that was the genesis of this whole project.
Okay, and how did you search out Burisch and get a hold of him?
Well, I'm associated with Open Minds. Our website is openminds.tv, and everything that I'll be talking about tonight is coming directly from Dan Burisch. I didn't make up any of this material whatsoever.
So let's talk a little bit about Dan as a person, because we talked about this offline. I'd spoken to George Knapp about Dan. He's looked into his case. He doesn't think he's credible. You've looked into the case, and we're talking about a gentleman who makes some amazing claims, but we also talked about how much information is available that he puts out there. I mean, we're talking about pages upon pages of detail. If you're interested offline, as you just brought up, we're going to send you where you can read this stuff. But I took a look at it, and it looks like he's giving you the nuts and bolts. So let's give this audience, before we go to a break, the nuts, I guess the 30-second elevator pitch of what Dan Burisch is trying to expose and talk about with Aquarius. We'll take a break, and then we'll go deeper into it.
Right. Interesting. What I would say before we begin, if I may, is I just want to shoot out 3 quick things.
Sure.
You'll recall in the history accounts in the historical literature that in the 1800s, they said that man would never fly, but then on December 17th, 1903, the Wright brothers proved that wrong at Kill Devil Hills in North Carolina. So that, Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
Right.
We found out that we could fly. Then they said that man would never break the sound barrier. Of course, we know that Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier on October the 14th, 1947. Then finally, they said that mankind would never land on the moon. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon on July 20th, 1969. So all I'm asking is, for just once, we suspend our disbelief and give this gentleman the benefit of the doubt. Go through the free document that you graciously put the link up for. Allow people to read through this document kind of as we go along here, and then they can draw their own conclusions. That's the only thing I'm asking.
I think that's fair enough, and I always try to do that with folks. Like I said, sometimes they get burned on it. I got burned on it with Ed Dames locally and here in Portland, where he's supposed to come here and show me where Kyron Horman is located. Unfortunately, he never did, and he told me remote viewing would solve this case. Obviously, it did not. But let's get into Burisch's main claim. He claims that he was what? He was a employee at Area 51 S4, correct?
Okay, yes, let's get into it. First, we should mention here that Dan Burisch has a PhD in microbiology that is from the State University of New York, Stony Brook. He has a Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences from the University of Las Vegas. So that's his professional background. He started working at Area S4, and we're making this very brief here and condensed. Started working at Area S4 back in 1994, and that is located 12 miles south of Area 51, just to get people, acclimated to where this facility is before. Of course, Bob Lazar came out with some of this information back in '89, so most people should be familiar with some of this material.
Yeah, we don't have time for rehash. In fact, hold that thought. We're going to get into Burisch, and we're going to get knee-deep into what this guy is claiming. Alien relationships in the desert of northern Nevada? Who knows? This is UFOnaut Radio on KPAM 860. Don't go anywhere. Back with Michael Schratt on the line here. Michael, welcome back to the program. When we left off here, where we left off was we were just getting into Burisch. He claimed he was working at S4. Why did he decide to come forward, and what were some of the biggest claims that he made that really sent shockwaves through the UFO community?
Sure. He decided to come forward because he was given authorization by members of Majestic 12. Now, this is from his testimony. Members from Majestic 12 to go ahead and release this information to the public domain. And the most incredible claim of all this is that for a significant period of time, he worked with an extraterrestrial by the name of J-Rod at the S4 facility in a location called a clean sphere, which is on the level 4-5 portion of Area S4. That is the biggest claim in a nutshell of this whole story.
Okay, and the J-Rod, J-ROD, what did that stand for, if anything?
J-Rod was one of 3 extraterrestrials that crashed. Now, this is according to Dan Burisch.
Understood.
At the Kingman, Arizona crash back in 1953. One of them died on impact. One was sent to Los Alamos, and then the extraterrestrial that Dan Burisch worked with was sent to Area S4.
It's a pretty crazy claim to many, but not really within the ufology community, because they know about these crashes and they know that there was definitely intelligent life piloting these vehicles. So Burisch comes forward with this. What is the initial reaction through the community, and did he explain why he was coming forward? Was there an event pending, or did he just decide to do a Lazar here?
Interesting question. I believe he has been given a hostile response from the general public. It has not been a very user-friendly response. People just, for some reason, they don't want to accept what's been going on here. They don't want to accept what Dan has put forth. They never really gave the gentleman the benefit of the doubt. I found him to be a person of dignity, honor, and respect. So that's from my personal experience. I'm aware of the claims on the Internet. I think a lot of them are unfounded. They've never really looked at the material, and that's just what I would say.
Well, again, this is a gentleman, and correct me if I'm wrong, no movie deal, all right? He's not running around trying to do another Taken. He's not working with Spielberg. He's not trying to get a New Line deal. I haven't seen a book from him. So he's not making a bunch of money from this, folks. Most of what I've seen coming from this gentleman has been for free. And for some reason, Lazar has been embraced by the diehards. His story rings true to many. I being one of them. My gut tells me that he worked there.
Right.
So I guess go ahead.
Yeah. I would just say, in fact, if you may be interested in note that Bob Lazar is very well aware of Dan Burisch, and in fact, Bob Lazar has actually made some not so polite comments regarding Dan, and what I found interesting is Dan did not return fire for fire. He kept things on a business-like environment and did not, go back at Bob Lazar.
He didn't want to debate with him.
He held back, and he was a dignified individual, which I respected, actually.
I do, too. And so let's break this down, because Lazar worked on back engineering hardware at Area 51. Crashed disks that had been recovered, he worked to back engineer the technology to try to figure out how these things ticked and how we could utilize them to blow up people in the sand and do other terrible things to other people around the globe, probably. But Burisch
essentially
is
yes.
more it's a lot different. His story is a lot more, I would like to say, how should I explain it, possibly describe it as scary, because he actually claims he had a relationship that goes into utilizing telepathy and messages, communication with a being from another world. Let's talk about the kind of communication that he had with this J-Rod and what kind of messages he received from him. I know that's a lot, but let's give it an overview if we can.
Sure. I totally agree. Personally, I cannot confirm 100% that this story is real.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any physical evidence to prove it, and nobody else within the public domain has that either. I don't have a piece of the craft that J-Rod came in. I don't have access to the training update tapes that were involved in this. So, again, it cannot be proved 100%. But
Understood.
What I do want to comment on very quickly here is the oppressive level of security at Area S4. Just very briefly, this includes armed guards, optical scans, voice print identification, showering, weighing, shaving, and decontamination. So when you take on a job at S4, and if this story is true, which Dan Burisch is presenting that it is, it's the biggest story in millennium. We're talking about mankind's personal interaction with an extraterrestrial over a series of many months and years. So this is a very significant account.
Absolutely. So take us into some of the meat here, Michael. What kind of things did Dan speak to this? And first of all, we didn't get to what J-Rod possibly stood for, did we? Did you explain that to us?
Okay. I want to kind of follow our line of reasoning here. There are two outfits that are running this whole program.
Okay.
We talked about the defense contractors. So one is the Naval Research Laboratory. Okay. That's the organization that cuts the checks for people who work on Project Aquarius, okay? And that was confirmed also by Bob Lazar.
Absolutely.
When his W-2 came back, it was the U.S. Department of Naval Research Laboratory. Then we have the Defense Intelligence Agency. So these are the two primary outfits that are running the program. Now, when you get to McCarran International Airport, I want to, paint a picture for people so they can get an idea of what this looks like, and you can follow along and see the visual aids in the document here. You are taken to McCarran International Airport. You're taken to the EG&G facility. That's their building, also the Janet Terminal. There you board a 737-200 with light aircraft with a red stripe. Now, as you're flying, Dan said that the interior is a gray slate interior, and the seating arrangement is quarantined via what program you're working on.
Okay.
Just sit anywhere. You are quarantined to your organization. This, Jesse, I found was very interesting, this next point, and no one's ever talked about this. Bob Lazar never talked about this. This is the first time I've ever heard about it. When you're flying on the Janet Airlines from McCarran to Area 51, there is a very interesting song that is typed over the public address system. Do you have any idea what that song is, Jesse?
I'm guessing it's not Metallica. Sanitarium? No, nothing like that. Okay, go for it. What would it be?
It is Neil Diamond's Coming to America.
All right, Dylan just guessed Kenny Loggins, so he lost too. Neil Diamond, Coming to America. And what's the significance?
What is the significance of that? Well, I'm not going to sing it, but, it says Coming to America everywhere around the world. They're coming to it from far away, And if you think about the symbolic encrypted metaphor of what they're trying to say here is originally that song was indicative of immigrants coming to America to get a better life for themselves. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, if you put that context...
Hang on, Mike. Don't go...
The bottom line here, this is the $64,000 question. Why are they here?
Yeah.
According to Dan Burisch, there is something that happens in our timeline, some big event, okay, that happens in our near future that changes our DNA makeup, okay? And this J-Rod was suffering from a neurological neuropathy. There was a degenerative disease or a neuropathy that he was suffering. And so what he did is he came back to our time. He was a P45 J-Rod, so that means he was 45,000 years from our future. And he came back into our time in hopes that they could solve the neuropathy disease, fix it, so that when we got to their timeline, we would be fine. Generally, that's what we're talking about here. And the other point is that there's a big difference between an alien and an extraterrestrial.
There's a big
difference. That might sound weird.
Okay.
But
no, that doesn't sound weird. That doesn't sound weird, but I still want to know what JROD stands for.
Oh, yes. JROD had to do with the area that he came from and the keystroke on a key. That's the J on the keyboard. That's basically where they got the terminology from, because that was indicative of where he came from. And when he saw the J on there, it's a numerology symbolic representation of where he came from.
Very strange. Okay, when we come back, I want to get into why Dan Burisch came forward. Why did he decide to come clean? And why is this man still alive? More of this amazing story with Michael Schratt. This is Ufonaut Radio, KPM 860.
There are astronauts, and then there are ufonauts.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Now back to Ufonaut Radio.
You can't handle the truth!
Jesse Randolph on KPM 860.
Well, it seems as though, well, there goes Dylan. He's bringing up the music for us. Are we on board? Heading for Area 51, listening to Neil Diamond.
Right.
There you go, Michael. We put you in the mood.
Thank
so
you.
We're back here, back with Michael Schratt, talking about Dan Burisch, talking about the J-Rod. Why, first of all, how long did Dan claim he worked at this for?
Okay, between 1994 and 1996, he took approximately 200 tissue samples, 200 to 300 tissue samples from the J-Rod between 1994 and 1996.
So his mission was within genetics, but in actuality,
Correct.
Not only was he working within genetics, he was also receiving telepathic communication and then established some sort of relationship with this being, correct?
That is correct. That is absolutely correct.
What was the most, I guess, eye-opening issue that he brought up about his experience with this being? Was there something that happened? Was there something that just totally made your head spin?
I think just the fact that he, through a series of images, showed Dan his family back from his world. He had a wife, he had a son, and the J-Rod missed his family back home. Maybe that's the most important thing, that there was an actual family connection there and that Dan did have a relationship. I mean, they were friends. According to Dan, this entity and Dan, they actually established a relationship, just as you mentioned. So that may be the most significant thing.
Well, I think it's very significant because, of course, we sort of think of this being as an it instead of a being, someone that has feelings and thoughts and family and, like you just mentioned, a heritage.
Yeah, they kept him in that environment for quite some time. They had nicknames for the J-Rod. It was a very condescending type atmosphere. They called him Stumpy. They refused to let him have any clothes. So this was an oppressive society for this.
Yeah, shockaroo. Shockaroo. Let me ask you this. So was guilt the reason? Actually, before I go there, I want to ask you something. If J-Rod was allowed to leave the installation, would he have been able to be, I don't know, picked up?
That's a good question. I just don't know. I just don't know. They never let him. They never let him willfully go. That's for sure.
So Burisch.
That's for sure.
The reason he came forward, was it because of guilt? Was it because he wanted to expose these atrocities?
The reason that Dan came forward is because he was given authorization by Majestic to bring this information out to the public. It's been so long now, and perhaps they felt that the time had come. The vote was 7-4 with one abstention, and I think by now it is a significant majority of Majestic 12 that wants this information to come out, and so that's why Dan is coming out.
I always ask people on the program, why you, if they're an abductee or someone bringing some fantastic message to the world? Why you? Why John Doe? Why Dan Burisch? Why would Majestic 12 pick Dan Burisch? And we're not going to make fun. Physically, he's kind of a short, mild-mannered guy. Like you said, he's very calm. He doesn't look threatening.
Right.
Okay. He doesn't look crazy. But why would they pick a guy that obviously isn't going to be all that charismatic and obviously not taken as seriously as others? And obviously it hasn't really resonated, because from what I can see, his story, as you agree with, has not been accepted very well, especially in the past few years.
I think I can answer your question, and the answer is because Dan was and is a gifted microbiologist. This gentleman is a very intelligent person. He was a member of the Los Angeles Microscopical Society. He was the youngest member there. He was a dream kid. This gentleman was very smart. The government took an interest in him very early on. They knew he was intelligent. So by definition then, he was being groomed for this position at a very young age because he was just a brain when it came to looking at slides and looking at genetic neurotopical type diseases.
Okay.
So I think that's the reason why he was groomed at an early age.
So basically he didn't come forward because of guilt, but then he stopped working with the group and he left Area 51 at some point, correct? And if so, do we know what happened to J-Rod?
Yes, I do know what happened to J-Rod, and if we have time, we can certainly get into that.
Oh, we can't leave us hanging about that, but okay, go ahead.
Right. So let's move forward. We've talked about Neil Diamond. We've talked about the song "Coming to America." Now the next thing, as you're approaching your landing pattern on final approach to Area 51, Bob Lazar never talked about this. As far as I know, I've never heard any reference to it. There is a ATC clearance to land that comes from Dreamland. Okay, the tower at Area 51. They give you a clearance, and it's called Pyramid, Pyramid, Pyramid. That is the clearance from ATC to land at Area 51.
Okay, that's the call sign. Gotcha.
Yep. Once you land, there are 3 ways that you're transported to Area S4. This comes from Dan Burisch personally. Number 1, you take a blue Air Force bus, which is the standard way to get there. Now, that is confirmed by Bob Lazar, because he said that as well, that he boarded a bus to get to Area S4. However, the other options are you take a U.S. Army black helicopter, or, as incredible as it may sound, and I found this very interesting myself, you take a Soviet Mi-24 Hind helicopter to get there as well. I don't think there's very many in the U.S. There can be only maybe 1, 2 at the max. So
okay, bizarre.
I found that part of this account very interesting because I'm very certain that there are not many Hind helicopters in the United States.
Okay, fair enough. But listen, we're running low on time, Mike, and I know I'm going to have you back on. It's a short show sometimes, especially on the Saturday night shows. But answer me this. Have you been able to find anyone to corroborate Burisch's story?
The late Bill House.
Tell me about it.
A good portion of Dan's story, because there is and we haven't even got into all the levels or anything, but there is something called level 4-1B. Okay, that's on 1 of Area S4, and the 1B is for the integrated equipment for the flight simulators, these devices. Okay. And that was confirmed by Bill House, and Dan Burisch was aware of this facility. So these 2 things, they dovetail together. So we have independent confirmation from the late Bill House indicating that there was such a 4-1B facility at S4, confirmed also by Dan Burisch.
Okay, fair enough. Now, Dan, does he go on the record and talk about others within the program? First of all, I know he speaks about a whole bunch of programs going on at S4. And this is
sure, yes.
This is the underground installation. This is not the pictures you've seen, correct? This is within the mountain, there's an underground facility, correct?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Bob Lazar never said anything about other floors at S4. There are, according to Dan Burisch, 5 levels of Area S4. And this is something that Bob never talked about. He said that a white circle with a 41 and a black circle around it. But he never explained what that meant.
Well, that might be, Mike, because he wasn't allowed access. I mean, you're talking about, like I said, he dealt with hardware. Burisch was dealing with stuff that is a lot more exotic, esoteric, and in my opinion would require a whole different kind of clearance level. We're talking about the real deal here. Now, look, we're running low on time. We got to get back into the humility part of this, the sensitivity issue, the humanity element to this, which is how many J-Rods exist out there? Are there a bunch of these? We're seeing the event now. They were holding 66 or 94 people hostage, I forget how many, of these aliens. How many J-Rods do you think are out there?
Many. I don't know how many, but there are many. You've got P-45 J-Rods, you've got P-24s, you've got P-52 Orions. Personally, I don't know how many there are, but there's quite a few. There's quite a few, and they are from our future. So what I'm saying is we are the extraterrestrials. We will become what they are 52,000 years in our future.
Well, what did they come here for in the first place? Did he find that out? I mean, how did they crash? How did we end up capturing them? And if they're so technologically advanced, how are we able to keep them under wraps, and how are we able to keep them prisoners?
These are all the big questions.
Sure. Well, I bring the good ones, right?
Certainly, they're very good. He talks about, well, very quickly. Don't want to get off subject here, but the 9 hangar bays that Bob Lazar talked about. Dan Burisch also talks about them as he said in hangar bay 1 was the same model that Bob Lazar saw. In hangar bay 2, we believe it's the identical craft, or it could be a man-made alien reproduction vehicle. Dan said that in hangar bay 3, there was the original Roswell craft, which was a P-24 craft. It was under a black tarp. Hangar bay 4 contained something called a P-52 Orion craft. Hangar bay 5 was empty. Hangar bay 6 included a man-made version of what was in hangar bay 3. It looked like a modified F-22. Sometime we'll get into that. The next hangar bay had a tarp-covered object that Dan does not know what it was.
Okay, so this is stuff that he got to see in passing, or he was allowed access to all of this?
Well,
that has nothing to do with genetics.
As you go along the catwalk at Area S4, which I don't think Bob was able to go on, if you look off to the left, you can see into the hangar bays as you're walking above the hangar bays going down this long hallway. And something we didn't mention is an orange 8-inch thick diagonal stripe that runs down the length of all these hallways in this facility. And when you look off to the left, you can see these hangar bays. Hangar Bay 8 contained a black isosceles tricycle, triangular type vehicle. He believes that is the only alien device in the facility.
Okay, fair enough.
Now
listen,
extraterrestrial.
We've got about a minute left here. I told you this was going to be a tough one to try to lay the foundation tonight. We did that, okay? Question for you quickly. Number one, I know you got to tell us what happened to J-Rod, and we're running out of time, so you're not going to have time to do that. We're going to let you hang with that one as a cliffhanger. Do you think Dan Burisch will come on this program with you one day?
I think he might, yes. I think he'd be agreeable to it.
Okay, let's try to make that happen. Michael, thank you so much for being on the program tonight. Like I said, we laid a foundation about what I think is probably one of the most controversial stories in ufology. People don't want this to be true, Michael. We both know that.
There are astronauts, and there are euphonauts.
Warning. The following material may not be suitable for all audiences. Please listen responsibly.
Welcome, everyone, to Euphanaut Radio 9 to 10 every Saturday night, broadcasting live at our top secret location here in Portland. I am your host, Jesse Randolph, and as always, thank you for tuning in tonight to a program that takes you on a truth journey outside the Matrix every single week. Euphanaut Radio, what do we do here? We report the latest happenings within ufology, paranormal, new science communities, examining these subjects with a high level of the U.S. government this week apologized for horrible experiments performed in Guatemala by American doctors who infected hundreds of prisoners, soldiers, and mental patients with syphilis in the 1940s. The experiments were intended to test the use of penicillin. Absolutely disgusting. We've heard stories like this before. We've heard about past atrocities that our own government has performed on unknowing participants. Tuskegee ring a bell? And we are always shocked. We're shocked, right? Don't we have a moral standard that is higher than the rest of the world? Is it possible that our own government would deceive or possibly use its own citizens as lab rats? Interesting, isn't it? Makes you wonder. Well, when if the U.S. government had in their possession a being from another planet? Think about it for a second. An extraterrestrial being that was basically fair game for testing, for prodding, for probing, and was not held to any law or standard in a closet about their feelings regarding the extraterrestrial presence on this planet, the UFO phenomenon in general. Never before have we seen the mainstream starting to embrace this subject with clarity, with some sort of meeting of the minds, without just dismissing it, looking at some of the evidence. We still have a ways to go, let me tell you. But tonight's show, I think, is going to open up a lot of eyes. A lot of eyes. Here's a mainstream fellow coming on this program tonight. Another top-tier type messenger. And you know I like to bring you the highest quality messengers possible. It's the only way to reach the masses, especially in the Pacific Northwest here, with such incredible, affluent thinkers. I have to bring you the quality messengers, people above average to genius level intelligence, for you to digest and even possibly consider some radical concepts. So tonight's show, for those of you who have not heard of treatment, could this have happened? Perhaps it's still happening right now today. Project Aquarius. Does it ring a bell? If it doesn't, don't worry about it. You're going to hear plenty about it tonight. According to my guest, Project Aquarius was the U.S. government's alleged secret project to research extraterrestrial biological entities, sometimes referred to as EBs, and their presence on Earth. Much of the information on Aquarius in recent years has become known from the highly, and I will stress the word highly, controversial whistleblower, Dr. Dan Burisch. Burisch has claimed interactions with an extraterrestrial named J-ROD, sometimes referred to as the J-Rod, who was housed in a secret underground base at Area 51, referred to as S4. So it was a top secret location within Area 51. Our guest tonight has been investigating Dr. Dan Burisch and his claims regarding Project Aquarius, as well as Burisch's explanations to the following questions. Positive scrutiny together. So, with that being said, put the cell phone on vibrate. All my friends out there across the globe, Portland Metro, my friends enjoying this amazing, long-lasting summer. Open your minds while we present the taboo that most are afraid to discuss openly. So much going on this week, I wouldn't know where to start. If you miss our 2 shows during the week, we call them Ufonaut Light. They're all available for free at your leisure. Download them on iTunes. Look for Ufonaut. Go to ufonautradio.com. Support us. Watch our videos. We have a brand new YouTube channel that we're very excited about. It's a partnership with UFO TV. And I think we were 35, the most popular YouTube sites in the UK. We were ranked number 35, UFO TV, and that is exciting. We've got a brand new, our 9/11 special is up there, 45 minutes for you. The Leslie Kane interview is up there for you. Download them, go watch them, and enjoy them. I'm telling you, this is an amazing year for people who have been in the